The galaxy had always been a place of conflict, powerful empires, strange alien species, and endless stars filled the universe with chaos. But among all the known forces, none were as feared as the Shillith Empire. Led by the cold and calculating Queen Celestara, the Shilliths had conquered dozens of planets, leaving nothing but ashes and rubble behind. Her empire was vast and ruthless, built on technology and might. Nothing could stand against her. Her forces were everywhere, always on the move, always relentless. And the people of the galaxy feared her not just because of her army, but because of the rumors, whispers that Queen Celestara was not human, that she possessed powers beyond anything the universe had ever seen. On a small, remote human colony, the Shillith Empire had arrived without warning. The people fought back, but they were no match for the might of the Shilliths. Auric had been one of the defenders. A seasoned warrior, he was known for his bravery and skill, having fought in countless battles across the galaxy. But even Auric knew that facing the Shilliths was different. Their ships, their soldiers, their technology, it was all beyond anything he had ever encountered. The battle was quick. The Shilliths were everywhere, storming through the colony with laser fire and advanced weaponry. Auric fought valiantly, his blade flashing through the air, cutting down enemies left and right. But for every one he struck down, 2 more appeared. He was pushed back, fighting until the last. It wasn't long before he was captured. He woke up in the cold, dark confines of a cell, his arms shackled to the walls. The room was silent except for the hum of distant machinery, the only sound that reminded him he was not alone. His mind raced as he tried to piece together the events that led him here. He had been taken, not killed. The Shilliths were not merciful, but they had spared him for a reason. Footsteps echoed down the corridor outside, and Auric straightened up, ready to face whatever came next. The door to his cell slid open with a hiss, and 2 armored Shillith soldiers stepped inside. Their armor was black, sleek, and intimidating, with glowing blue lines running across it. They stood silently, their faces hidden behind reflective visors. Without a word, they pulled him to his feet and led him through the halls of the Shillith ship. He had heard stories of the Shillith's palace, but seeing it in person was different. The walls were made of cold metal, adorned with strange symbols and alien designs. The air was thick with tension, and Auric could feel the weight of the Empire pressing down on him. They led him to a large chamber, the doors opening to reveal a throne at the far end. The room was massive, far larger than anything he had ever seen. And sitting upon the throne, as regal and imposing as the stories had described, was Queen Celestara. She was stunning, her presence commanding attention. She wore dark, flowing robes, and her hair cascaded down her back like a waterfall of midnight. Her eyes were a piercing shade of violet, glowing faintly in the dim light. She was not just a ruler, she was a force of nature. And as Auric's eyes met hers, he could feel the weight of her gaze. It was as if she could see into the very depths of his soul. "Bring him closer," she said, her voice calm but full of authority. The soldier shoved Auric forward, and he stumbled, but caught himself before he fell to his knees. He stood tall, unwilling to show weakness in front of her. Queen Celestara's eyes flicked over him, studying him like a specimen under a microscope. Her gaze was unflinching, and for a moment, Auric felt like he was the prey, not the hunter. "Tell me," she began, her voice smooth and almost melodic, "how does it feel to be the last of your kind?" Auric's jaw tightened, but he did not answer immediately. He had been asked this question countless times before, but from her it felt different. The weight of her words hung in the air like a challenge. "I'm not the last of anything," he finally replied, his voice steady. "You may have destroyed my people, but you will never break me." The Queen's lips curved into a faint smile, but there was no warmth in it. It was the kind of smile that promised pain. "I don't intend to break you," she said softly. "I intend to see if you can be useful." "Your people may be gone, but you are still alive. And that in itself is impressive. It means you have something to offer. Perhaps you will be of use to me. Arik didn't flinch. He had no intention of helping the Shilliths, but he also knew that fighting her now would be foolish. He needed to learn about her power, and perhaps find a way to escape. I don't serve anyone, Arik said firmly. Celestara's smile widened, and she stood from her throne, her movements graceful and fluid. She descended the steps toward him, her eyes never leaving his. I think you'll find that you have no choice, she said, her voice low and dangerous. Arik didn't flinch as she approached. He could feel the tension in the air, the invisible energy that seemed to radiate from her. She stopped just a few feet away from him, her presence overwhelming. Her hand reached out, and for the first time, Arik felt a flicker of fear, not for himself, but for her. There was something about her that was different from any enemy he had faced before. She wasn't just a conqueror. She was something else entirely. Touch me again, she said, her voice low and threatening, and you will die. Arik didn't hesitate. His hand shot out before he even thought about it, brushing her arm lightly. It was a simple gesture, but it sent a shock through the room, a jolt of energy that left the air crackling with tension. The Queen's eyes widened for the briefest moment, and then her smile returned, though this time it was colder.
You are bold, she said, her voice barely a whisper, but you will learn.
This galaxy is not kind to those who challenge me. Arik stood tall, his heart racing but his resolve stronger than ever. He had made his choice. He would not bow to her, not now. Not ever. I don't fear you, he said, his voice firm. The Queen's expression darkened, but she said nothing more. Instead, she motioned for the guards to take him away. As they dragged him back to his cell, Arik couldn't help but wonder what had just happened. The touch had been nothing more than a simple gesture, but it had affected her. He had seen it in her eyes. There was something in him that made her pause, something she hadn't expected. And as the doors to his cell closed behind him, Arik knew that this was just the beginning. He had touched her, yes, but now he would have to survive her and the empire she had built. But deep inside, he couldn't shake the feeling that his destiny was now entwined with hers in a way neither of them could yet understand. Days passed in the cold confines of the Shillith dungeon, but Arik didn't let the silence break him. The walls around him were barren, the air still and stale. Yet, in the darkness, he kept his focus sharp, his mind racing with possibilities. The Queen had made it clear she wanted something from him. But what? He sat cross-legged on the cold floor of his cell, his thoughts wandering. He knew the galaxy well, and he understood the nature of those in power. The Xilith Empire wasn't built on mercy. It was a ruthless machine that crushed everything in its path. But Arik had survived worse. Much worse. He had faced horrors in the war against the Thalrics, and had barely escaped with his life. His human resolve was stronger than any enemy he'd ever met. The door to his cell suddenly slid open with a soft hiss, interrupting his thoughts. 2 guards entered, their black armor gleaming in the faint light. They were silent, but their presence was commanding. Without a word, they pulled him to his feet, pushing him forward through the narrow corridor. Arik didn't resist. There was no point in wasting energy. They led him to the same massive chamber where he had first seen the Queen. The throne room, he thought. It was still as cold and intimidating as before. The walls loomed high above him, and the air was thick with the strange electric hum of alien technology. Queen Celestara sat upon her throne, her violet eyes locked on him as he was brought forward. Arik, she spoke, her voice smooth as silk. I trust you've had time to think about our situation. There was no need to answer. She already knew he had thought about little else. He had been trying to figure out what her next move would be. What was her game? Why had she spared him? You must be wondering why I haven't killed you, she continued, her gaze piercing through him. Why I've kept you alive when so many others have fallen. Arik met her gaze, his lips curling into a slight smirk. You keep me alive because you think I'm useful. She tilted her head slightly, a faint smile playing on her lips. Perhaps, or maybe I see something in you, something different. Arik remained silent. He had no interest in playing her games, but he knew better than to show his cards too soon. She was dangerous. The Queen's power went beyond what was visible. He had felt it when he touched her. There was something about her, something unnatural. Celestara stood, her robes flowing around her like liquid darkness. She descended the steps of the throne, her eyes never leaving his face. The distance between them closed quickly, and before he could react, she reached out, placing her hand gently on his chest. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, a shock ran through him. It wasn't physical, not quite. It was more like an energy, a force that tugged at his very being, like the invisible threads of the universe had been suddenly yanked. He stood frozen, the air thick around him, as if it had grown heavy with pressure. Her touch was not soft, though it appeared so. It was powerful, filled with an ancient energy that Eric had never felt before. It was as though she was probing him, reaching into the depths of his soul. He wanted to pull away, but her grip was firm. I can feel it, Eric, Celestara whispered, her lips barely moving. The power you carry. You are no ordinary human. Eric took a deep breath, gathering his strength. He didn't want to show weakness. Not now. He forced himself to meet her gaze, his voice steady.
And what exactly do you think you can do with that power? Celestara's smile deepened. I don't need to do anything.
It's already yours. You are the last of your kind.
The one who carries the old power? The old power?
What did she mean by that? Eric had heard rumors, tales passed down by the elders of his people. Stories of an ancient line of warriors who were born with an energy inside them, a power that could challenge even the most advanced civilizations. But Eric had always thought it was just that, stories. He had never believed in it. Do you really believe that? He asked, his voice tinged with disbelief. That I'm some ancient warrior? You're wasting your time. I don't waste time, Eric, she said, stepping closer. But you are wasting yours. Suddenly, the air around them seemed to shift, and the pressure in the room grew heavier. Celestara's violet eyes glowed brighter, and the temperature dropped noticeably. Eric could feel the chill on his skin, the hairs on the back of his neck standing on end. He could sense the power around her. But now it was different. It wasn't just the power of the Shillith technology. It was something older, something more primal. I don't need you to believe in it, Celestara said, her voice low and commanding. You will, in time, because I will make you. Araeus' heart raced. There was no doubt in his mind now. This was no ordinary encounter. This was a test he had no choice but to pass. I won't be your pawn, he said firmly, his voice rising. No matter what you try, I won't bow to you. Celestara didn't flinch. Instead, she gave a slow nod, as though she had expected this. We'll see. She released him with a final, deliberate push, and Eric stumbled back, regaining his balance. He didn't look away from her, even as the guards moved in, preparing to take him back to his cell. You have a choice, Arik, Celestara said as he was led away. Work with me, and I'll give you power beyond your wildest dreams. Fight me, and I will break you. Arik said nothing, his jaw set. He wasn't afraid of her, but he was beginning to understand that this was more than a simple battle of wills. It was a war for control, a war for something far bigger than either of them could imagine. As they dragged him back to the dungeon, his mind raced. He had never been one to follow orders. But something about Celestara's words and her touch had unsettled him. There was more at play here than just survival. There was something ancient, something buried deep within him that she wanted to uncover. And as the door to his cell slammed shut, Eric knew one thing for certain. He had to figure out what that power was before Celestara could use it against him.